Definitely. I mean, I think it's also funny that the second we got off of the trail, our guide was like, just, be aware, like, there's stinging nettle and stuff, like, don't touch that. And it's everywhere. It's literally all over. It is vines and stinging nettle. So definitely have your long sleeves and gardening glove.
Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Chris.
I'm Kat.
And this is episode number 185.
And we're talking about Uganda. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room. At least you guys can't see it because this is a podcast, but Christopher wearing his Stetson hat from Safari. First of all, he's been dancing around the kitchen all evening with this hat on, listening to Johnny Cash, and claims that he's going to wear this to a wedding we're going to this weekend. And he's still wearing it.
I'm never taking it off.
Okay.
This is a great hat.
Okay.
It is, just everything about it. In function, in style, everything. I love this hat.
All right, kisses.
Yeah. We should add this to our holiday gift guide at the end of the year.
I do need to go through that and update it, but I will say that I don't think the Stetson is quite going to make the cut.
This is going to make the cut. Is there a safari section of the gift guide?
No, but I think I'm going to make like a safari, like Uganda or Kenya packing guide.
Is it going to make that cut?
Yes.
Okay.
Rest assured, Christopher.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
You don't have yours on.
No, I do not.
Are you ever going to wear it again?
Yeah.
Or was it like just for the gram?
No, I like it. I'll wear it again, but it needs to be like the right outfit. I'm not just going to like wear it around the house.
Catherine, as someone who has spent a considerable amount of time in the South.
I'm sorry, what?
I was raised for a portion of my life in Texas.
Okay.
This is in my blood.
When you were a toddler?
Yeah, do you know that as a toddler I owned 2 cowboy hats?
Shocking.
I got them, one of them I went as like a cowboy to school. I think it was like for Halloween or something. The other one, I believe that I got at my birthday at a restaurant.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So this is not my first sombrero. Okay. But yeah. What's new with you?
Not much since we last recorded. Just figuring out flight stuff for my trip in a couple of weeks to France, my rescheduled trip. To Provence with my sister.
Are you bringing the Stetson?
No.
That's a shame.
No, I'm not bringing the Stetson. I am bringing the scarf I bought in Kenya.
That was a really pretty scarf.
It was. It's like a cute little, it's like all neutral colors.
Like your soul.
No, well, because I wanted something that's going to go with everything, and it's a cute scarf, and I'm going to bring that with me in case it gets cold.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
But anyway... Any updates with you?
No, not really.
Okay.
Just, settling back into my non-daily Stetson wearing life.
I guess you could you wear it to work?
Now that you mention it, absolutely.
Maybe on a jeans day.
I could absolutely wear this to work.
Oh boy.
That's a great idea.
I don't know what I started.
Do you have a highlight from the week?
Aside from you dancing around the kitchen in your Stetson.
That was a highlight?
Yeah, that was.
I'm glad.
Okay. Also, seeing our friends last night. We were invited to 3 weddings this weekend. Also, our wedding anniversary is tomorrow, which I'll probably talk about on our next recording.
Not as a highlight, but just as a what you've been up to.
No, but it's our 4-year wedding anniversary coming up tomorrow, and which I'm very excited about. We celebrated it in Kenya, in Uganda. But our trip overall was a celebration of it, but we had like a romantic dinner that they had arranged for us. And that was really delightful. Sweet. It was really sweet. They even gave us a free cake after our dessert, and it was just lovely.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So that was great. We got to celebrate there, which was lovely, but we're also gonna probably just reminisce and talk and hang out tomorrow. I think we're getting bagels in the morning together, which will be fun. But yeah, I mean, that's exciting. But we have 3 weddings we were invited to this weekend. It was really hard to decide, but the family wedding wins out, obviously. So we're heading down to Kentucky to go to a family wedding. And we got to hang out with a couple of our friends that are getting married this weekend that we unfortunately couldn't make it to their wedding. So I was really glad we got to spend some time with them and wish them well and congratulate them and hear about the wedding planning process and the days leading up to it. And I'm glad they could fit us in their schedule during the week of their wedding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that's not always easy.
My highlight also has to deal with that. I also added on that we opened our first Barolo that we bought in Italy.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
We had a Grasso Brothers.
That was not Barolo.
Oh, sorry. Of the wines we purchased in Italy, we have had some.
Wow. Yeah. But yeah, that was the first Barolo from Struppiano. It was fantastic.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So
that was good. But like you said, well, do you have anything else that you want to talk about or no?
No, that's
Do you want to go put on your Stetson, or are you prepared for the episode?
I'm good.
All
I'm
right.
prepared. I wore a baseball cap during this because my Stetson's a little loose on my head, and I knew I was going to lose it if I were to actually wear this during gorilla trekking.
Fair enough. All right. So, like you said, we are going to be talking about Uganda, but more specifically, gorilla trekking. So, we have previously discussed our love for wildlife trips, wildlife sightings, adventure trips, that sort of thing, and how they are one of the best experiences to share with a loved one. We talked about this as part of the different types of romantic vacations episode, which was episode 157. So if you did not listen to that, go ahead and do so. This wildlife sighting with mountain gorillas is even better because humans share approximately 98% of their DNA with gorillas. Mm-hmm. That is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy that just like...
And it's even higher for chimpanzees, which we'll talk about in another episode.
I think it's like almost 99%. Like, it's just insane to me that, like, just knowing how different we look, obviously, and, like, the huge differences between us, how 2% seems... I mean, it's so small.
2 worlds, 1 family.
The amount of DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But due to the amount of shared DNA, there is a really deep connection. When you look, I mean, when I look at a lion or when I look at a leopard or, I don't know, what have you, right? Like a warthog or an antelope, there's not as deep of a connection. You can tell that, like, the animal, like the gorilla is looking back at you, right? There is...
Well, I think there's some, like... Yeah, there's definitely a connection there because we're so close,
yes,
relative-wise, I suppose. They're sort of a distant cousin, you know?
Yes. And, like, I had read about it, and, like, I was like, okay, yeah. But, man, is it true. But anyway, gorilla trekking, a lot of fun, but it is not for the faint of heart. So, in today's episode, we are going to talk all about gorilla trekking in Uganda. And to start us off, why Uganda, right? So mountain gorillas are primarily found in Uganda, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC. And that is central to Eastern Africa. Mm-hmm. Why did we choose Uganda? Well, the permit to track gorillas, which is good for the trek, spending 1 hour with them, and then obviously coming back. In Uganda, currently, as of the recording of this episode, it is $700 per person.
For 1 hour.
For 1 hour. So it's an investment. We did not trek on multiple days.
But it would be $700 a pop if you were to do that.
Yeah. And that's just for the permit, right? And there's additional fees that we'll kind of talk about, but we met people that were tracking on 2 days. Mm-hmm. We met people that were tracking on 1, but yeah, the permit is $700 per person in Uganda. It is $1,500 per person in Rwanda, more than twice as expensive. Mm-hmm. I said that they were also living in the DRC. At this time, it is not recommended to go see them in the DRC. Not just our own personal opinion, but like even when we were in Uganda, we were chatting with locals, with our driver, and he was actually from Rwanda, worked in Uganda, and he kind of talked about it there. And we were like, well, don't they also have them in DRC? And he was like, yeah, but do you want to track it in Uganda or Rwanda? So fair enough. In Uganda, 20% of the permit fee goes to the community. And that helps to fund public initiatives like hospitals or schools or what have you, as well as going towards infrastructure. So whether it's bridges or roads or what have you. So expensive, but for a good cause, right? And it's the conservation of the area and the animals and everything like that. But when we were planning this, it was kind of my thing to say that I want to go gorilla trekking, right? And when you were looking into it, what kind of swayed you to Uganda instead of Rwanda?
I thought Uganda right away, just because that's not the only, I mean, I don't know too much about Rwanda to really have a whole say about it. But I knew with Uganda, you have the tree climbing lions in Queen Elizabeth National Park. You have the chimpanzees in Kabale National Forest, as well as it's known as the primate capital of the world, which would be neat to see. So I kind of thought that it was a great country to go to and enjoy, the gorillas, the chimpanzees. We didn't get the chance to do this, but I think it's the golden monkeys.
Yes.
We didn't get to do that, but see these other primates, and then also get to go on a safari while we were there. Yeah, and I think that was...
It offered the whole package.
It kind of offered a lot of different things, and then, of course, we were like, hey, Kenya's right next door. Why not pop over to the Masai Mara and also check that out, too? So that's kind of how the trip was formed. Yeah, so I feel like Uganda was sort of always the place that I was like, if you're going to talk about gorillas, let's do that. Also, the permits are cheaper, so it's a bit cheaper to visit Uganda than it is Rwanda. So yeah, I think that's probably what it is. Even though I've heard that Rwanda is far more developed, I guess, with their infrastructure, their tourism's a bit more developed.
Yes.
But I really enjoyed like Uganda as well. I mean, most of the roads were dirt roads around there. They do have paved roads in certain parts and of course in cities and things, but yeah, as you get to the national parks and stuff, it is a lot more
rustic.
Dirt roads, yeah.
Yeah, which was awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about things to consider prior to arrival. Mm-hmm. Okay, so number one, we recommend using a company. They will secure transportation for you, which this is kind of a BYOT. Bring your own transportation here. Mm-hmm. The lodges do not provide transportation. So, I mean, we had the same driver from when they picked us up at the local airstrip, Kihihi, mm-hmm. to when we were dropped off at our next airstrip. Mm-hmm.
And these airstrips are not like, oh, you land and then in a couple minutes you're at the lodge.
No,
like it was an hour and a half away from the airstrip where we were.
Yes. So if you use a company, they'll secure transportation. They'll also take care of securing your permits. We have used two companies when traveling to Africa. The first is Safari 365, and the second is Go to Africa. Go to Africa was the company that we used for this trip. They use Africa Beyond Borders as their like local affiliate, at least within Uganda.
Yeah, I think it's a Ugandan company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely use a company. The other thing to consider here prior to arrival is to book your permit before the hotel.
And that's what our guide Milton told us, because we did not know this at the time. We thought there was only one place to track gorillas in Uganda, as far as in Bowindi Impenetrable National Park, because fun fact, you can also go to further south to Mahogany National Park that also has gorillas for gorilla trekking. But Bowindi is more of the popular one. I think there's a lot more hotels, a lot more gorilla families to go track, so it's definitely a lot more popular. Yeah, so our guide, while we were driving there, recommended that because we had booked our hotel and everything like that because we knew we'd probably stay in Bahama because that's where some of the nicer places are. And it's also just, there's a lot more hotels there. I don't know, there's a lot more options. It's in a convenient location and stuff for continuing on our trip. But we didn't realize this at the time, because I don't think the gorilla permits were available in that area. So they had booked us to the eastern part of the park in Rhodesia. And so we had to get up really early in the morning for like a 2-hour drive. Or how long was it? 2 hours, 2.5?
It was 2, yeah.
To get to Rhodesia to start the trek at 8 a.m. So it was a bit of a hike. I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the family that we got to trek to, the gorilla family. And the drive there and back is absolutely stunning.
It was.
Well, in the morning you don't really see it because the sun's not up, but it's stunning coming back. But just as a side note, if you want to stay in a certain sector of the park, maybe try to book your permit in that sector. Because originally we were like, oh yeah, like we're in Bahama, like we'll get a permit there and it'll be just down the road and we can start the trek where we're staying. But when our guide was like, oh no, we have to get you have to leave really early because you're going to be going to the Rhodesia sector of the park. And we were like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
So I was fine. But just as a heads up, when you are planning your safari or your gorilla trek, if you want to go trekking somewhere and you don't want a long car ride to get there and back, or if you want to do multiple days, you can always book those permits accordingly. But you make sure you kind of have that settled and know where you're going to be trekking before you book your hotel.
That's a great tip. And just because you mentioned Rhodesia, there are 4 sectors that you can track gorillas in the Bowindi Impenetrable Forest, which is just an awesome name.
And it is impenetrable.
And it lives up to it.
Yeah.
The 4 sectors are Rhodesia, which is where we trekked, Rushaga, Buoma, which is where we stayed, and I'm going to butcher this, Nkringo.
Okay.
That NK gets me.
Yeah.
But those are the 4 sectors.
Mm-hmm.
Something else to consider prior to arrival is to train. And to also be realistic with yourself, right? So there are kind of 2 ways that you could go about this. The first is the mindset of I can handle a fairly difficult hike if I train up for it. And that was the mindset that we took.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess we didn't necessarily have to train too much because we hike a lot,
right.
And we run a lot.
Yeah.
So that helped because we were already kind of prepared for it.
Yes.
But if you don't, definitely, if you want to do a harder hike,
mm-hmm.
definitely prepare. And even if you're going to do one of the easier hikes, they are the mountains.
Elevation, yeah.
I mean, you're going up and down.
Yes.
And you never know where the gorillas are actually going to be.
Yeah.
You kind of have a general idea. And you really don't know until you get started and they move. So yeah. They could be further out than where you think that they're going to be the day before. So, yeah.
But the other nice option here is that they are able to accommodate you. Mm-hmm. If you're not a big hiker, if you know that this is not going to be your forte, there's kind of 2 options. The first is to hire a porter. Any of the porters live in the local communities. When we went, the going rate was $20 per person plus tip. Mm-hmm. We both hired porters. I think that we probably could have gotten by fine without them.
I don't know. I slipped a lot.
You did. But,
it was going downhill was the hardest.
Slippery,
going back uphill, I was totally fine. But going down, my porter certainly helped me quite a bit. Just like when it came to navigating that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, but
they also carry your bags.
They carry your backpacks, and you're directly supporting those that live within the community, which is awesome.
Yeah. So we had talked about it and we just decided like, we're just going to do it regardless, even if we think we can do it on our own, just because they're there to help if we need it, but also you're supporting a person in the local community and like helping them. That's their job. Like, that's what they're doing, and you're helping them with that.
Exactly.
So.
The other option is, if this is already sounding like a little intimidating, right? Maybe you're not a hiker. Maybe you like, oh gosh, the ups and the downs and the uphills and the down. Like, it's just going to be a lot. They do offer a service, which they affectionately refer to as an African helicopter. Mm-hmm. They will carry you to the gorillas and then carry you out back to the vehicle. Mm-hmm. Whether it is on a, they describe them in various ways. There is there's like a plank with the seat from a car that is attached to the plank, and a team of 4 or 6 will carry you.
I think it's a team of 8 and they rotate out.
Okay.
Because 4 people carry at a time.
This is a fantastic option. I mean, they were talking to us about some people who had lost a limb or had broken a leg or something like that.
Or people that were like, I think there was 100-year-old that went, like, if the elderly and the disabled, if like that.
Yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity, and it makes it like accessible to all.
Very accessible.
But it's something I highly recommend that, well, it's $300 to do, plus tipping.
You took my punchline.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it is $300 to hire this.
Plus tip.
Plus tipping these to 8 people for doing this for you, which I would hope you tip pretty well if they're carrying you back and forth. But yeah, I think that's such a great way to still make it accessible that people can still go and see the gorillas. I mean, you're going to do the easiest one, obviously, because they don't want to carry you for like 2 to 3 hours each way.
Well, they don't, but sometimes they have to, because
Yeah.
The other thing is, even if you think that you can do the hike, and let's say that you get halfway or a third or something, and you're like, I just cannot get back, they will go out, they will carry you back, same price, but at that point, you're probably you're significantly tipping, for them to have to hike out and then come back unexpectedly. But prior to arrival, just train and be realistic. The other thing is to nail down that packing list. What we wore were hiking boots, thick wool hiking socks, thick pants, because there's thorns, there's prickers. I mean, you're hiking through stinging nettle. You're hiking through a forest. Yes, you're on a trail for some of it. You're off trail for a good part of it as well. We'll talk about that later. But thick hiking pants, a long sleeve shirt, a hat, gloves, like gardening gloves, something with a grip, something that you wouldn't mind like grabbing onto a vine, grabbing onto a tree. Something like that will protect your hands.
Also, again, from the stinging nettle that's everywhere.
And then you have a backpack, whether you're carrying it, whether you choose to hire a porter, but that should have like a very basic first aid kit if you cut yourself or something like that, something to help kind of dress that wound. Food, water.
Which usually your lodge will provide food for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Water. We each took our hiking bladders, which are 3 liters each. Mm-hmm. We probably each consumed about 2 to 2.5 liters of water.
Yeah.
A raincoat, because you're in the rainforest. It could rain at any time. A fleece. It can get pretty cold in the morning.
It was pretty chilly when we first started our hike.
It was.
So we also live in Cleveland. So if you live in Florida or a warmer climate, you might feel colder than what we felt at the beginning.
Bring that parka.
No, don't bring the parka.
And then an extra pair of socks, just in case. I mean, you're in the you go in the creek or you take a tumble or something like that, and your socks are soaked. Bring an extra pair of socks. You'll thank yourself.
Or if it rains, when you get your socks back. Also, don't forget your camera. If you want to take your camera, GoPro, whatever, anything like that you want to bring is a good idea.
Something interesting that we learned on our trek: don't bring bug spray. You had a point where you were like, "Oh, I'll like reapply some bug spray," and our guide,
there was a ton of flies and a lot of bugs everywhere.
And our guide was like, "No,
why you want to do long sleeves and a hat?"
Yes, our guide quickly admonished you for it, and said that bug spray will actually attract the bugs there. They don't have mosquitoes.
Attract wasps.
Yeah, it attract wasps. They don't have the mosquitoes. They don't have anything that would be deterred by the bug spray. They only have bugs and insects that will be attracted to the bug spray. So do yourself a favor, do your porter a favor, lighten up that bag, don't bring bug spray.
I would say don't bring it, but if I recommend like is it Sawyer is the lotion, and I recommend putting the lotion on like under your like clothes and stuff because there's still ticks, and you want to repel the ticks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I think that's still a good idea. Don't bring like the outdoor the backcountry DEET spray from off because that does have a certain smell to it. But Sawyer's has like a very subtle / no scent lotion that you can put on, and that should still at least repel like ticks and things like that.
Great point.
Yeah. And there's still, like, depending on where you are, we were in the Rhodesia sector. You might be in a sector that has mosquitoes. I don't really know, depending on the elevation. But, I think, again, that's probably a good idea to put the lotion on before you go out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't spray DEET.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn from us. Anything else that you would want to have considered or wanted to know prior to arrival?
I felt pretty prepared because I'm sort of someone who overpacks when it comes to hiking just because I want to be extra prepared. Well, my bag was also heavy because I had my camera equipment in there.
Yeah.
So that didn't help. But
poor Lawrence.
I would say that the biggest thing is if you're considering not wearing a hat, bring a hat, because when you get to the machete portion of the day of the hike, you're going to be hitting tree branches and like there's going to be like vines and bugs and all of those things that it just really helps to have a hat on to keep your hair safe and your face safe, especially if you're wearing like a ball cap or something with a brim on it from the swinging various branches and different plants that are going to get in your face as you're macheting through the woods.
That's where the Stetson comes in, my dear.
I just wore a baseball cap and it was fine.
Yeah. All right. So now we can talk about the fun part. What to expect. It's the day of your trek. So you can expect being in somewhat of a sizable group here. The group can have a maximum of 8 permit holders. Mm-hmm. You also have porters. So that could be 8 more people. Right there, depending upon how many people in your group choose to hire a porter. You have a guide. You have 2 armed Ugandan Wildlife Authority agents, one in the front and one in the back. This can be a bit harrowing at first, depending upon where you hail from and like how visible firearms are in public. They are there because, I mean, you're in the jungle, and most of it is for forest elephants.
To scare them off. They don't want to shoot the forest elephants,
right?
But shooting in the air will typically scare them off.
Yeah.
And we saw forest elephant tracks, and we followed a forest elephant trail down the mountain.
We did not see a forest elephant.
We did not see one, but they are definitely there.
Yeah. And so the concern with forest elephants are that they are typically elephants that have been driven out from the herd or perhaps were males that were very aggressive and now live solitary or a life with the boys in the forest, and they can be a bit territorial and a bit ornery and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the primary concern there. In addition to them, you will also meet up with trackers at the end. So there are, again, armed trackers, armed agents that spend the entire day with a gorilla family. So they will leave once the gorillas make their nests at night, which is a pretty cool thing to see. We didn't see them making their nest, obviously, but we did see where they had nested previously. Mm-hmm. So once they make their nest, they will leave. They will then go out early in the morning before you go out to see where they are and see how far they have moved from that nest. And then they will be there. So
yes, and that is a newer development. They used to not be there the entire day, but then a silverback was accidentally killed by poachers. Or killed by poachers back in 2020, and then they changed it to where the trackers essentially need to be there all day with them, sort of for the gorillas' protection,
which is awesome. I'm in full support of that. So you're going to be rolling in with a squad here, is the moral of the story.
But I will say that the porters do not come with you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Once you get close enough to the gorillas, the porters will stay back. The wildlife authority agents will stay back. And the guide will go up.
And the trackers will be with you.
And then
it's just your smaller group. Yeah.
Yes. Expect a hike of anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours plus. Our hike...
Just to get to the gorillas.
Yeah. That does not include coming back. Our hike was right around 2 hours, about 1 hour on trail, and then 1 hour where the trail continued, and we were like, well, they're to the left, and what you referred to as machete time, that's when they just started macheting, and we were going over, I mean, there was swampy areas, there were rocky areas, hills, mud, up a mountain, down a mountain. I mean, it's wherever the gorillas are. They're wild animals. So there is a significant part of your hike that could be off trail and very difficult. There was one part of our hike where, and we were in Ruhija sector, where the vines were so dense that you could not step on the ground anymore. So you were just kind of walking over vines, which were incredibly slippery.
Which I definitely slipped.
People are slipping all over. You're grabbing down, reason for the gloves, you're grabbing down on the vines, trying to maintain balance. You're on the side of a mountain. So, I mean, you're not going straight up or straight down. You're kind of going right on the slope there, and it's difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's also funny that the second we got off of the trail, our guide was like, just, be aware, like, there's stinging nettle and stuff, like, don't touch that. And it's everywhere. It's literally all over. It is vines and stinging nettle. So definitely have your long sleeves and gardening gloves, because if not, you're going to get stung. Like, it was nice to be, like, we were pretty much covered head to toe in breathable material, which I highly recommend.
Yeah.
Breathable but durable material. The only thing that wasn't covered was our face, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. But once you get to the gorillas, you then have 1 hour to spend with the family. When we were there, you had to wear masks. As soon as you got in range of the gorillas, they asked you to put your mask on. They did not say whether that was going to be something permanent going forward or not. It's not just because of COVID. It's also because, like, the common cold to us could absolutely devastate a gorilla family. The fact that we share so much DNA, communicable diseases can be absolutely devastating if you pass it from one to the other.
And as you can imagine, a gorilla family is pretty isolated. It does not have a ton of contact other than the humans.
The people.
that
Once
come
a day
around.
for 1 hour.
Yeah. So that's why wearing a mask is so helpful, because, like, we're exposed to a lot more diseases than they are, and it's mostly to protect them. Yeah.
And it's also not just for the permit holders. All of the trackers, the guide, everyone had a mask on when they were within distance of the gorilla. Like we said, we're not sure if it's going to be permanent, but it was something that we experienced.
And we also couldn't just, like, go right up to the gorillas either. Like, we had to keep a certain distance.
10 meters.
Yes.
Approximately 30 feet.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there were times we got closer, but, like, we never got within, like, 10 to 20 feet of them.
And it was also, the guide also said quite a few times, like, hey, they are getting too close to us. We need to back up. So it's kind of you're at their mercy, but you're also trying to maintain that distance so that nothing happens and they remain healthy.
Well, I think we should also mention the fact, too, that not all families within the park are habituated. So habituation of the gorilla families basically means that they go through a process where they just get used to humans. And it's a process basically where people will go I don't know if it's the Wildlife Authority, I believe, that goes and they sit with them. And it's a 7-year process to eventually get this gorilla family used to being around humans. And so that they would feel comfortable enough to spend 1 hour a day with humans and not be upset or territorial or anything like that. And the family that we went to see, the Mukiza family, paid us no mind. They like, I think they were so used to it. And
I don't agree with that.
Well, except the babies.
Yes.
The adults could not care less that we were there. The silverback, if anything, got slightly annoyed of us and would just grunt and walk away. But yeah, like it's nice because they're habituated, so they're not really like, they don't feel threatened by humans. They feel completely fine.
And I'm going to build on that a little bit with the comfort level. Mm-hmm. Our trackers at various points, if like someone slipped or something like that, I mean, they're very trained in animal behavior, mm-hmm. right? So there were certain times where they would make gorilla noises, right? Like the if the silverback popped up or something like that, like if we were getting a little close or if one of the babies started getting a little close.
I did slip and fall in front of the gorillas because we're basically just standing on tree roots, and I completely fell and had the hardest time getting up because it was so slippery.
That was not, so it was more so when the babies started coming near us, they were making noises to let them know that like, hey, everything's okay.
But
which was cool.
As a guest, do not make noises.
Do not make noises.
Because you don't know what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
They're with this family every day. But yes, you mentioned that we tracked Mukiza group. I said that we were in the Ruhija sector. This group has about 28 individuals. We did not see all of them. They were kind of all within the area. I would say that we probably saw 12 mm-hmm. to 15.
Yeah, I'd say we saw almost half of them. Pretty
special that they had a 3-week-old baby when we were there.
Yes, a tiny, tiny baby.
Absolutely mm-hmm. beautiful. The group had a lot of infants, which was awesome because they were by far the most entertaining, the most engaging. Yes. I mean, they're climbing everywhere. They're beating their little chests. They were having a great time running around because, like you said, the adults or the sub-adults were not necessarily as engaged. It was like, oh, okay, it's this time of the day again.
Yeah, and I think everyone wants to see and get photos of the silverback, and the silverback was just chilling. I mean, if anything, he would just lay flat on his back, just chilling, eating some leaves, and just doing his thing.
The silverback was humongous.
He is humongous. But yeah, most of the adults really don't do much. I will say, very surprised at how much they moved within that time frame.
Great point.
Because I kind of thought, oh, we'd get there, the gorillas are just there, and we just sit there for an hour and watch them. But there was a lot of moving involved, especially when the silverback would just kind of grunt and walk away, and then the other gorillas would follow him, and then we'd have to go find where they went and follow them along. So that, just prepare that you're probably also going to have to do that during your trek, depending on how active the gorillas are. But yeah, the babies were definitely the most exciting. They were climbing on trees. They were falling all over the place. They were tackling each other.
Yeah.
They would get close to us.
Antagonizing the silverback.
Yes, there was one that got up in a tree and was beating his chest as this little baby. And it was a tiny tree. The silverback walks past and just literally breaks the tree. And all you see is this little gorilla just like slowly falling with the tree down to the ground.
Yeah, it was really cute. So in the hour that we spent, like you said, they're moving around. We probably had to move position 4 separate times. Not anything huge, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're not running away, but maybe.
But it's a very slippery terrain. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a total of 100 to 200 meters of kind of movement once you're there.
Yeah, I also want to say that speaking of 98% of DNA, the adult gorillas were also just exhausted by the children.
that was very evident.
Because it's like having a crap ton of toddlers around you. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like they're really not that different from humans at all.
Yeah. All right. So the last thing to what to expect, cash is king. We went over how many people are out there with you. this is going to be not only because of the permit is expensive, but this is going to be expensive from a tipping standpoint as well. So just to run down tips that our company had given us kind of the going rate and that we abided by. Again, this could change depending upon when you're listening to this. So talk to the company that's planning it. But just to give you an idea, so porters were $20 per person. We ended up paying each of our porters $30. We also tipped the guide $20. We also tipped each of the wildlife agents / trackers $10, and that was again based upon the customary tip.
Yeah.
So you're carrying cash into the jungle. You're also giving out quite a bit of cash for this experience. It is an incredible experience. It really is. It is unlike anything I have ever experienced. I'm still kind of reflecting and processing it. I don't want to like rush into anything, but I know that this is easily like a top 5 travel experience for me. I just don't know where it's going to rank in that top 5.
I gotta say, the second we started going off trail, which is a huge fear of mine. I like to hike. I don't like hiking off trail. I'm very afraid of ticks. I'm very afraid of like snakes and all of the random things that you could probably brush up against.
You were a trooper.
So thanks. But, so that made me very, very nervous for a bit. But once we got to the gorillas, it was very much well worth it.
Easily.
It was. Was I like, oh crap, now we have to hike back? Yes. But luckily we found that forest elephant trail and we did not have to go quite as crazy with the machete going back.
Easy breezy.
But yes, I think it was well worth it. Once you have your hour, I think a big tip there is during that hour you have with the gorillas, take photos, take video, whatever, spend some time doing that, but spend a good chunk of your time as well actually watching.
Don't look through the lens all the time.
Yeah, like make sure you actually put the camera down at some point. Make eye contact with one of the gorillas, and admire the little babies as they run around. And just really enjoy it because that hour goes by so fast.
It does.
And then you're on your way back.
Yeah, recognize how similar it is to like a family reunion. Right? Like the adults are over here, the kids are running all around, like it was really cool.
Yeah. And then afterwards, you do meet back up with your porter. And then a little bit later, you stop somewhere to grab lunch or stop somewhere in the forest to eat your packed lunches.
There you go.
And it's so funny because our porters and everything, they would make us like a little nest to sit on. It was really nice of them.
It was very nice.
To put these leaves down. I was like, it's fine. Like I can stand or I don't care. But like it was really nice of them. And we ate our packed lunches that our lodge provided because a lot of them will provide you a packed lunch for this.
Yes.
And then we hiked back and then we had the drive back, which was really pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that either you are really, really happy that you did and you would recommend doing the same thing, or looking back, you're like, man, I wish that I did this?
I think the hat was a big thing for me. Just bring a hat and the long sleeves.
Awesome. Mine is a bit more, I don't want to say like strategic, but like a little bit of like a peek behind the curtain here. Okay. So as I said at the top of the episode, this was my kind of experience, right? Like this is something that I wanted to do. I have loved gorillas for my entire life. We have home video of me just like walking around the house going like gorilla and like loving gorillas, right? So when we were talking to our guide, he was kind of asking questions like, oh, like, why did you decide to do this? And I'm talking to him about this. Like I mean, gorillas are my favorite animal. I've always wanted to see them. And I also started saying like, yeah, like I know that they're not in the Ruhija sector, but, I know Mubare family, they were the very first habituated family. They're in Bahoma sector. And just kind of talking to him about that and like how, like the history of how Mubare kind of started the other families being habituated and blah, blah, blah. It's also good to just kind of have an open and honest dialogue with your guide. If you don't want to do a huge hike, tell them that. If you do want to do a rather difficult hike, which we did, tell them that.
So this is your safari guide, not like your overall driver guide person.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
They're the ones that kind of go to bat for you on who you're going to be hiking with, what family you're going to be hiking to. So if you're like, hey, my knee's acting up, I just want to do like an easier hike or anything like that, that's the person you're going to want to talk to, because they're going to be the person saying like, hey, this is the family they should probably go see because of this.
Yeah.
If you're like, I want to do the hardest hike, I've hiked Everest and I'm wonderful and I can hike all day. That's something to maybe tell them too. Maybe don't be so braggy, but like, that's something to tell them so that they can be like, okay, well, they'll do a harder hike. If there's a specific family, like Christopher, when you had read that book about gorillas, a specific family you really want to see and pull for that's going to be in the sector you're in, you can also do that. And our guide really, really pulled for us.
He did. So he kind of told us like how it works, right? So he had been talking to us. He knew that I had done some research and I knew like some of the families. I did not know Mukiza Group before we got there. Mm-hmm. But I was telling him like how long this has been on my list, like how much I love gorillas, all this kind of stuff. And so what happens is the permit holders go to a like a 20-minute briefing, like a general kind of here's what to expect sort of thing. While that's happening, all of the drivers, the safari guides, are talking to the wildlife agents and saying, hey, this is how big of a group I have. I think that they should track this family because. So they're kind of advocating for you there. It was awesome because Milton was so excited when he came up to us after our general briefing, and he was like, I got you guys such a good family. Like, there's a bunch of babies. It's going to be really active. Like, and he was like, Chris, like, this is what you're like picturing all these years. Like, this is going to be it. And it was awesome. And it was just because like we were chatting, and it wasn't like like we want to do this because that's what you do in Uganda, or like that's the main draw, or what have you. Like, there was like a personal connection. There was some research that had been performed, and I would absolutely recommend that so that you know how to kind of describe the experience you're looking for, because your safari guides are absolutely going to go to bat for you and try to get you that experience.
Yes, so definitely appreciate your safari guides for that, for sure. So they're going to be the ones in contact with the groups and stuff, because we had told them the day before we could do a harder hike. We don't want to do the 30-minute hike. We even said we want to trek to the gorillas. We don't want it to be like an easy, leisurely walk.
We didn't want to do a gorilla walk.
We wanted to actually work for it. And not that the other, I mean, everybody's got their own limit. Everybody has their own thing. But for us, we were like, we really want to push ourselves for this. And that was pushing ourselves. That was, so sometimes that 30-minute walk might be pushing yourself. So do whatever feels right to you, and be sure to communicate that with your guide ahead of time.
Yes. Read about Mukiza Group online. Check them out. Look at the pictures. It was a blast with them. That was a fantastic hour. All of that being said, this is not a cheap endeavor. Would you return? Would you gorilla trek again? Or are you satisfied with the experience?
I will say that if you had asked me right after, because there was a time where you had asked me, would you do this again tomorrow? Like if there was an option to do like a 2 days in a row, I would have said like, I'm glad we did the harder hike the first day. I would have wanted an easier hike a second day. Yes, I would do it again. And I think I would definitely do it again. Even the harder hike after some time, but like after that harder hike, if we were going to do them 2 days in a row, I would have wanted an easier hike.
Yeah.
I
agree with that. This is something that I would absolutely do again. I also think that it would just be kind of a neat experience because, like, look, I mean, we have the pictures, we have the video. Would we take some again? Yes. Would it be less? Yes. So it would just be another opportunity to kind of experience that deeper connection. It's really hard to put into words the feeling that you get when you lock eyes with a gorilla, being the fact that they share so much of their genetic makeup with humans. There really is a deeper connection that is just awesome. And like you can see the curiosity and like the wonder on the babies' faces because they're like, man, this thing looks similar. And you can see that there's that deeper appreciation, which is really neat. I would go back in a heartbeat, whether it's Uganda, whether it's Rwanda, whether it's the DRC, depending upon what the future holds. I would absolutely go back. I just think that it's such a special experience. It's one of those where I'm hoping to have that experience again. But at the same time, incredibly satisfied if that's my only time gorilla trekking.
That's very true. Great sentiment, Christopher.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else to add about gorilla trekking in Uganda specifically?
I don't think so. Just it's it may not be something that you're, I guess that you had thought of traditionally. Maybe you're here because you're like, oh, good, an episode about gorilla trekking because I've been looking around and this is what I found and that's awesome. You're gonna have a blast.
Welcome.
Maybe you're here without any kind of prior knowledge about it. Go ahead and do a deep dive. Watch all the YouTube videos like we did. Read about the families. It's going to skyrocket up your list.
And I don't know if I mentioned this at the top of the episode or not. We stayed at Mahogany Springs Lodge. That's where we stayed. It's beautiful. We got to stay in our own little like villa sort of thing, which was lovely.
Honeymooner one.
Honeymooner one. They actually upgraded us. But all of them are little like cabin things to stay in. But yeah, be sure to get that, get a nice little book a massage afterward. Ours was included. I think just through our safari company, they had booked us like a free, like extra massage after our gorilla trek. Very good idea though, just to work out those sore muscles. That was delightful. But yeah, that's gorilla trekking in Uganda, guys. If you guys have any questions, or have you guys been, or what are your experiences with this, can always feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at WWHoneymoon, Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, or email kat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.